Alrighty, welcome back everybody to the last part of the PreSecurity Module. We're in Windows Fundamentals 3. So it says we're about to learn about built-in Microsoft tools that keep the device secure. So we're talking about Windows updates, Windows security, BitLocker, and more. Estimated 30 minutes of time. Let's go ahead and start our machine up. That might take a few minutes. All right, so we're continuing our journey exploring the Windows operating system. We already know how to connect it and everything. It may take up to 3 minutes to load, so we're going to go ahead and mark complete while that does its thing. So we're talking about Windows updates. So if you've ever been on the administrative side of things, you know all about Patch Tuesday. If you're in the security world, Patch Tuesday is also pretty damn important too. Um, the second Tuesday of every month, Microsoft releases its cumulative patch for majority of its ecosystem. Not only Microsoft does that, a lot of the other big industry partners have also adopted a similar patch schedule where they'll have minor patches throughout the month in a large cumulative patch to be pushed right around that second week. You know, might not be exactly Patch Tuesday, might be on the Monday, might be on the Wednesday, but a lot of them aim for that Tuesday as well. So I'm talking like Apple, Adobe, kind of the other big players. But what Microsoft has done is Patch Tuesday, that's when they release the cumulative patch, which then a lot of patching cycles will be based upon that date. Um, every enterprise is different, whether it's set to auto update or maybe your enterprise might have a test group. Maybe you're pushing out to, the test group first, seeing how it is, and then pushing out to production. But Microsoft's cadence, patching cadence is very important just in the industry because it all kind of pivots around Patch Tuesday, at least on the administrative side of things. What is kind of crazy is the sheer amount of numbers of things that get patched. So it is March. I believe this month it wasn't too crazy. I think there was something like 60 vulnerabilities. Of those, the kind of headlines were about six um, 0 days that were actively exploited. This past couple months, been seeing some months go up to like 80 vulnerabilities being patched, but maybe there's only 4 0 days. And of those 0 days, how many are actually being actively exploited? So in enterprises, patching cadence and severity, where they have to push out of bands and whatnot, that revolves around Windows Update. Um, and there's so many different ways to update as well. We're not getting into that. This is not an administrative course or anything like that, but this is just going to go into the basic Windows update where, hey, you can go into settings, hit update, and it will check if you have any updates available, and as well as if there's any restrictions on that. Maybe your enterprise will automatically push out, the cumulative and some optionals, but not all the optionals. Just depends on how things are set up. Let's see. Throughout the years, when users have grown accustomed to pushing the Windows updates off to a later date and not installing the updates at all, various reasons can cause this action. One being the fact that reboot is typically required after Windows update. Microsoft nobly addressed this issue with Windows 10. The updates can no longer be ignored, pushed to the side until forgotten. Microsoft updates can only be postponed, but eventually the update will happen and your computer will reboot. Microsoft provides these updates to keep the device safe and secure. That is not 100% true for enterprises. They have control over the deferral periods and they can set how invasive, quote unquote, invasive the updates will be. So, uh, work culture, a lot of things go into this, but right out the box, Windows Update is going to try to do its job. Administrators might set things that do not really go along with how Microsoft would like things updated. And that might just be, some devices you can't have just rebooting at random, or maybe like Java is always a great example where there's a niche, a piece of software that has, back end with Java, and it only supports up to a certain level Java. Meanwhile, Java's getting updates like every week, every 2 weeks. But the team that actually is updating the product, they're not going out for the latest and greatest. So update cycles for products can lag behind. We're not getting into the whole shebang bang. Windows has a fairly good built-in process, but the computers still need to do what they need to be doing, and the service needs to actually be doing what it's supposed to be doing. So this question over here is asking, there were 2 definition updates installed on the attached VM. On what date were these updates installed? So we're going to go to the check for updates area, which is this, and you know, it's the VM, all right? It's not going to have everything. On your own personal Windows device, you can click that depending the time of the month. Maybe you're searching this right after Patch Tuesday, you might have a whole bunch of stuff, or maybe it's 3 weeks after that, and your computer has already prompted you saying, I need to restart. But for this, we're going to view the update history. Hey, we have 2 driver updates and 2 definition updates. For the driver updates, they are VMware, a display, and a system patch, and the definition updates. So these are updates specifically for Microsoft Defender, as most antiviruses or most antivirus softwares need their definitions updated fairly frequently, because as bad actors are coming out with new indicators, the antivirus needs to be updated so it knows what to look out for. So on what date were they updated? And it was on the, let's see, what's that? The 3rd of January, February, March, April, May. So May 5th. So May the 5th be with you. Boom. 2021. All right, cool. So that's Windows Update. I know I went out on a tangent. Um, what you need to know is Windows will attempt to update itself on default. Patch Tuesdays are second Tuesdays every month. All right. Windows Security. So per Microsoft, Windows Security is your home to manage the tools that protect your devices and your data. So we're going to go ahead and search for security. Is this actually going to open up? Damn icon. Okay, it did. So you can go through settings to get it, or you can just launch it like that. It has virus and threat protection area, firewall, network protection, app and browser control, and device security. If you're not familiar with all these, Microsoft does a pretty good job with all of these. That's not saying if you have a full enterprise, just leave all these on and you're going to be 100% protected. No, not saying that. I'm just saying the products that Microsoft put out for these that are included, they do a pretty good job. So you might not need to look for a specific application control piece of software when the built-in ones like AppLocker do a pretty good job at whitelisting. All right. So we're going to jump into each one of these apparently. Before proceeding, let's provide a quick comment on SAS icon. Green means it is sufficiently protected. Yellow means a safety recommendation for you to review, and red means there's a warning for our immediate attention. So we probably need to look into this a little bit. And it says click on Open Windows Security. That's where we're already at. Since attached VM is Windows Server 2019 and looks different from Windows 10 Home or Professional Edition, this is what it will look like in those versions of Windows. All right. So let's see. Check the security section on your VM. Which area needs immediate attention? We already identified that. It's the one with the big red X. So that is virus and threat protection. Bam. Cool. Next, going into virus and threat protection. So it's divided into 2 parts. We're going to click on it. We have current threats as well as a virus and threat protection settings. For our current threats, it's going to show us the last scan date. Says 0 threats were found. The scan lasts 31 seconds and it scanned 34,000 files. That's pretty sweet. You can do a quick scan, you can do a full scan, or a custom scan. All right. Next is virus and threat protection settings. Ours is currently turned off. It did get an update Um, Ransomware protection is good to go as well. So let's see, there are settings which we can go to in manage settings. There's real-time protection, cloud delivery protection, automatic sample submission, controlled folder access, exclusions, notifications. So if you are turning these things on and it turns out in your environment, then it starts to not allow particular piece of software to run. And if your enterprise says, no, we need this to run, you can provide exclusions. All right. But if you do that, you probably want to know exactly what you're excluding. Like they did include a warning right here. Excluded items could contain threats that make your device vulnerable. Only use this option you're 100% sure what you're doing. All right. So each time you make exclusions and kind of chip away in all the layers of security, you are potentially opening up a vector in. So you got to be wary of what you're doing and put in due diligence to make sure what you are excluding from policies, whether it be a firewall, whether it be a local thing, just understand what you're giving for that to properly be going. All right. Let's see, what else is it saying? You can perform on-demand scans by right-clicking, and then you go scan with Microsoft Defender. Yep. All right, the below image. Okay, so here's from regular Windows device. You right scan on like a file, right click on a file, it'll say scan with Microsoft Defender, and then it'll go and it will do a little scan and it'll say, one file if it's just a single file or a folder. All right, so answer the question. Specifically, what is turned off that Windows is notifying you to turn on? All right. So it really wants us, if we go over here, real-time protection is off. The other ones, remember, they're yellow, so they're suggestions. The red one, though, needs immediate attention. So real-time protection, bam. And if you are like at the enterprise level, you're not actually doing this on every computer. You're administering these settings through policies, all right, whether it be GPO, whether it's in configuration manager, whether it's in Intune, whatever ways that the enterprise is actually managing Defender, that, you know, you're if you have 50,000 computers, you're not doing this at each one. That's just crazy. All right. So we're moving on to firewall. So if we go back, we have firewall network protection here. So per Microsoft, traffic flows into and out of devices via what we call ports. We learned about that. A firewall is what controls what is, and more importantly, what isn't allowed to pass through those ports. You can think of it like a security guard standing at the door, checking the ID of everything that tries to enter or exit. We've learned about firewalls in the networking fundamentals. You can have a firewall running on an endpoint, so such as your Windows 11 computer can have its firewall settings. Then on the network side, you can have a device sitting on your network that is your network firewall. All right. And they will each have their profiles and they'll each have their rules. And yeah, so don't think that Microsoft security firewall is the same as your network firewall sitting there. Do they perform similar functions? Yes. But a dedicated device to have all the bandwidth, because not everything on enterprise network is running on Windows. So your network still, if you're talking about enterprise, should have a network firewall on there as well. Now, when we look at Windows firewalls, we have different profiles here. So we have the domain, or you have the domain network, the private network, and the public network. All right. So the domain profile applies to networks where the host system can authenticate to a domain controller. All right. So typical AD, you're logging in to your work credentials and everything, and you're on domain. Your private one is a user assigned profile, and it's used to designate private or home networks. So that's probably what you should have when you're in your own domicile, that type of deal. And then public, this is used when you're at in public places. So the Wi-Fi hotspots at the coffee shops, the airports, and all that. All right, so if you click on any of the firewall profiles on the screen, will appear with two options. So we can either turn the firewall on or off or block all incoming connections. So if we're looking at this private network one, it says active private network is network 3. The Windows Defender firewall is on. And we are not blocking all incoming connections, all right? So this is a very good warning. Unless you are 100% confident in what you're doing, it's recommended that you leave your Windows Defender firewall enabled, all right? The defaults are good. Microsoft knows how to at least get majority of stuff handled, all right? It won't cover every single niche case, but they do a pretty good job. All right. Let's see, allow apps to communicate through Windows Firewall. So this is the old kind of interface for it, out of control panel, and they're just allowing different apps to operate on different profiles. So this is saying this Aldroy router application can go on the private profile, so like at your house, but not in a public, Starbucks Wi-Fi type of setting. All right. Then you can go into advanced setting as well. So let's go ahead and open up this. Let's see if it actually has this here. All right, we do. So this is Windows Defender Firewall with advanced security. So it looks a little bit different. It still has the same domain profile, private profile, and public profile. You can see the rules that are set up. These are inbound rules. These are outbound rules. So let's just go ahead and look at the question. If you were connected to airport Wi-Fi, what most likely will be the active firewall profile? So we're talking either the domain, the private, or the public profiles. And because we are at an airport, when we hop on that, we probably have to, read through the splash page that you're agreeing to responsibly use their internet, and that is a pretty good indicator that you are in a public setting. So we are going to go with public profile. Oh, it may not be in English. Oh, wait, hang on. What will most likely be the active firewall profile? Did I spell this wrong? Hint XYZ network. That's fun. Let's see now. If you were connected to the airport Wi-Fi, you're most likely on the public profile. Active firewall profile. Nope, I'm sorry. Public profile. That's fun. We'll figure that out. Hang on. So let's do. Let's see. Where are we at? We're at Defender Firewall, so we could do security. Is it called something else? Network. There we go. Boom. Sometimes it's that simple. All right. Next up is app and browser control. So this is going to talk about the settings in Microsoft Defender Smart Screen. So Microsoft Defender Smart Screen protects against phishing or malware, websites and applications, and the downloading of potential malicious files. All right. So you can click here to learn a little bit more. Let's go over here. So we have it in these settings. We have check apps and files. It will warn the user of the device when it when it finds an app or file that's unrecognized. So it might not, if it's a random script, if it's an application that's not properly signed, things like that. Windows Smart Screen pops this up. All right, so sometimes it's blue, sometimes it's red. If it's in an internet browser, typically like Edge, then it will be red as they try to, like, if somebody clicks on a bad link on from an email and it opens up that hyperlink, Windows can try to stop that with Smart Screen. And typically it'll say don't run, but there are like the little advanced options and ways to continue past that depending on how you have your settings set up. But high level, Windows is trying to protect the workstation and the user. All right. Exploit protection. So this is just protection that's built um, to protect, again, the system from exploits. All right. And it looks like there are both system settings and program settings. So there's control flow guard, data execution prevention, force randomization for images, randomized memory allocations, high entropy ASLR. So there's a whole bunch of settings. All right. We have program settings where you can add particular settings. So on this, let's see, what do they actually turn on? Because it says that there's one setting that's actually enabled. We're going through and it's forcing the randomization of images. All right. So you can do it per each program as well. So again, they come with these warnings. Unless you're 100% confident in what you're doing, it's recommended that you leave the default settings. All right. Boom. Next up, we are on device security. Let's go back. Device security. Says even though you're probably never changing these settings for completion's sake, it'll be covered briefly. So we have core isolation here. In there, we're talking about memory integrity, which prevents attacks from inserting malicious code into high security processes. And again, the warning, unless you're 100% confident, leave it on default. There's a security processor, which isn't in the VM, I don't think, but on a personal Windows 10 device and 11, say your security processor along with your TPM. Um, Windows 11 requires a TPM 2.0 chip to be on Windows 11. That way it can use Windows Hello and all these other features, probably or whatever. But if you're running Windows 11, you got one of these, and it is a piece of hardware that just assists with kind of validating what's going on the inside. So if your computer does not have a TPM module or a TPM chip, you're probably not running Windows 11. Just putting it out there. Oh, here we go. Trusted platform module. So TPM technology is designed to provide hardware-based security-related functions. TPM chip is a secure crypto processor that is designed to carry out cryptographic operations. The chip includes multiple physical security mechanisms to make it tamper-resistant, and malicious software is unable to tamper with the security functions of the TPM. So, what is the TPM? It is the Trusted Platform Module. So we're not going very deep into this. Like I said, they're just covering it because it's in the Windows security era. Moving on to Bitlocker. Bitlocker is we already talked about Bitlocker a little bit. All right. So Bitlocker Drive Encryption is a data protection feature that integrates within the operating system and addresses the threats of data theft or exposure from lost, stolen, or inappropriately decommissioned computers. Per Microsoft, Bitlocker provides the most protection when used with a TPM version 1.2 or later. The TPM is a hardware component. It works with BitLockers to help protect user data, ensure that the computer has not been tampered with while the system was offline. If you tamper with a Windows device that has BitLocker enabled, when you start it up and say, okay, boot me to Windows, it will bring up a screen that says, enter the BitLocker key. It's a long stream of alphanumerics that then you have to put in just so that it will actually boot to Windows and continue on so that you can actually use it. If not, it's essentially trying to brick it because it doesn't want you to tamper with the data. So it's protecting it through encryption. All right. So answer the questions below. We should use a removable drive on systems without a TPM version 1.2 or later. What does this removable drive contain? All right. I don't think it said it right here. So BitLocker overview, practical application, BitLocker TPM. So this is what it looks like. to unlock a drive. All right. For Bitlocker, here we go. Let's have yes. The system BIOS or UEFI firmware must support USB mass storage. Okay. Needs operating system drive and system drive because those are the normal partitions. All right. Where is this at? Device encryption. Okay. Difference between the two. Sure. Disable. Let's see what the hint says. Issues removal drive on systems without. What does this removable drive contain? It's probably going to contain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Something key, maybe? You know what we can always do is we can do copy. We'll go ahead and paste this. The startup key. Okay, and let's go ahead and see really quick. Startup key. Yep, there we go. So in addition to TPM, Bitlocker can lock the normal startup process until the user supplies a personal identification number, so a PIN, or inserts a removable device that contains a startup key. Cool. Next up is volume shadow copy service. So shadow copies, that's what we're talking about here. It assists with data being deleted. All right, it's essentially a little way for backups, but let's see, how do they define it? So the service coordinates the required actions to create a consistent shadow copy, also known as a snapshot or a point-in-time copy of the data that is to be backed up. So volume shadow copies are stored on the system volume information folder on each drive that has protection enabled. If volume shadow copy service is enabled, so system protection is turned on, you can perform the following tasks from within the advanced system settings. You can create a restore point, perform a system restore, configure restore settings, or delete restore points. So from a security perspective, malware writers know about this vanilla feature and write code in their malware to look for these files and delete them. Doing so makes it impossible to recover from a ransomware attack unless you have an offline or offsite backup. Breaking that down, this is the snapshot service. So if you did get hit with ransomware, hypothetically, you could, like, let's say you got hit on ransomware on Wednesday, and if you had shall copy service running properly, you could then just revert to Monday's snapshot. And then, that would mess with the bad actors' intentions. So they're saying that bad actors know about this and they will attempt to go into this service and delete the configuration so that those won't be available. Now, if you're reading it, if you're like, okay, well, it says unless if you have an offline or offsite backup, why wouldn't you have that? Because storage costs money. All right. It costs money and it takes time to administrator, the bandwidth, the how you're actually storing it, all that is time and money. So as much as we want every enterprise and everybody to properly have all these, you know, security measures in place, that's not the real world. Okay, and it says if you wish to configure shell copies, you can right click. So let's see, where is Explorer? So File Explorer. We'll go this PC. We'll go ahead and say this. We can right click and we can hit configure shadow copies. If you can see, both of these are currently disabled. So we want to go to enable to do that. And we can go into the settings. We can set limits. That way you're not completely eating up all of your storage just by doing shadow copies. And you want to make a proper schedule as well. By default, it does 2 per day. Depending, if it's one shared folder, sure, whatever settings, but you don't like want to have shadow copies going constantly. That just, that's processing power that eats up on space. So If you wish to interact hands-on with shadow copies, they do have them in the Advent Cyber 2, day 23. So what is VSS? That is going to be the volume shadow copy service. All right, there we go. And in conclusion, we covered several built-in Windows security tools that ship with the Windows OS and help keep the device protected. There's still so much to explain and cover regarding Windows OS, as mentioned in Windows Fundamental 1 rule. Remember, this content is aimed at those who wish to understand and use Windows OS on a more comfortable level. So we have a couple recommended rooms. So Credential Guard, Windows 10 Hello, cool. So this little note is pretty interesting because it's talking about living off the land. So attackers use built-in Windows tool and utilities in an attempt to go undetected within the victim environment. This tactic is known as living off the land. Refer to this resource, but the more you know about the target operating system, whether it be Mac, Linux, Windows, the more you can, hide what you're doing. The more you can tamper with it because you have a better knowledge of it. So this was just the fundamentals of Windows. Trust me, there's going to be a lot more modules about Windows. Same thing along with Linux. Let's go ahead and terminate our machine there. We're hitting complete. Congratulations on completing Windows Fundamentals 3. That concludes the pre-security module as well. So I'll put this on the playlist. Thank you all for joining me on this. We still have 2 more modules to go through as part of the SAL1 certification, and we still have to go through the SOC simulator as well. So might be dipping in the SOC simulator a little bit before jumping into the next big module. We'll figure it out, but thank you all for watching. Hopefully this helps y'all. Have a good one.